Hello, families. We are here. We are here. The Twin Flame Spiritual Chefs here to sprinkle a little bit of love and healing on you. I'm your host, Janine, along with my co-host,
Keisha.
Man, oh man, let me tell you something. If you have somebody in your life, and let's say you married to that man or that woman that is driving you in freaking sane.
Yes.
But the irony is that you won't leave their ass. I'm gonna tell you why that's happening today. And the reason why that is happening because of something called soul contracts. You are contracted, you're contracted, it's a contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have entered into this lifetime with the pretense of having to balance some shit out. And I know we talked about karma before, but man, oh man, when you have to balance karma out, we decide before we come here, let's make it a little easier on ourselves.
Yeah.
By assigning somebody that we are already well familiar with, a soul that we are already well familiar with, to help get us through the life lessons that we need to learn. And you brought that asshole back with you. God damn it. Why you do that shit? Why you do that?
Yeah, yeah.
So you basically created a contract. And let me tell you, man, don't you regret it? Why we're here, because I want to tell you how to avoid these contracts. Get about them contracts. You don't ever have to come back and do that bid with that asshole again.
Yes.
And let me tell you, that contract could be anybody. I just lightly and jokingly am using your spouse as that contracted individual, but man, it could be your boss, it could be your sister, it
Yeah.
could be I don't know, your landlord.
It could be a classmate.
That's me. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, anybody. You can contract with literally anybody. And the reason that how you know it's a contract is because that person's energy just
Yes.
nudges at you.
Yes, it attaches to you, but there's positive and negative. So
Yeah,
you have
this
some
positive
contracts
contract.
where there's some contracts where it's like loving, like Janine and I have a contract.
We have a
Yeah,
contract.
and it's a loving contract.
Yeah. Yeah, or your soulmate, so your
Yes.
soulmate too. You know, twin
Yeah.
flames, obviously your contracts, but and those are the plot positives. But you know what's cool is that when you create a contract with somebody and you come down here, obviously unknowingly, you don't know it's a contract unless you already have this foundational knowledge that we're teaching you guys today. Is that when you create a contract with somebody, and man, it can start off hard. It can actually start off good. It can turn hard.
Yes. Yeah.
And but my point is, when it's hard and you have to fight through it and figure out how to navigate the relationship, right? And it can be a lot to figure out the elements that you need in order to navigate that relationship. But once you figure out how to do it, I'm telling you, you can bring it back to zero. You can
Oh
bring
yeah.
it back to balance and
Mm-hmm.
still have something peaceful and magnificent out of that relationship. And that's why I'm here to tell you how.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here to tell you how.
So I think they need to know like like how it starts. So when you're in heaven, you sit with a nurse. So I would say nursing council. Look at me. You're sitting with a spiritual council, and they look at your resume of all the things that you need to work on in this next lifetime. So, for example, my husband and I had mentioned previously that in another lifetime, I was the husband and he was the wife. And when I sat with my spiritual counsel, I did some terrible things. And so I had to come back and fix it. So, him, out of the kindness of his heart, I'm not saying he was perfect in that lifetime, but out of the kindness of his heart, he came back with me to help me fix the karma that was on my list of to do things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how some contracts work. Some contracts are for you to fix the things in this lifetime, but just know that this was all predestined before you came down here. There's also contracts where I always remind my aunt, like I was going to quit nursing school, and it was that one line she said to me, "Don't quit." And I know for a fact that that's a contract that I had with her for her to tell me that line, because I actually wanted her to say, "Yeah, drop out," because if she said had she said drop out, I wouldn't have become a nurse. So that was the contract she had signed with me, was to stay in nursing school. You might have a contract with someone at a like the checkout line at a grocery store. It might be that 1 30-second interaction you have with that person that they need something from you at that moment. So contracts can be short term, contracts can be long term, and sometimes contracts can be a little hairy because a person could be the villain where they're here to make your life miserable, like Janine mentioned. But that's their job, to make your life miserable, because it may be a karma that you need to fix, or the misery that they're causing you may be the catalyst for you to elevate into a different direction in your life.
Yeah.
So it's a little ambiguous when it comes down to contracts, and some of you may be confused and say, "Well, I just don't get it." It took me a very long time. I'll be honest with you. Janine got it right away. I just couldn't figure this thing called contracts out. Now I understand it, and it's amazing how someone could be you could be living in a house with your son and daughter, and your daughter could have been your husband in a previous lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the funny thing about it.
Yeah.
You come back with your ancestor family, and you play these roles, you play these characters, and you say, okay, in the next lifetime, you're gonna be this, and I'm gonna be that. I previously mentioned for Janine that in one lifetime she was a Caucasian man, and his wife, which was Janine, was his wife was her current aunt in this today. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the weird part about it. That's the part I had a hard time. Like, okay, so you're saying my aunt was my wife in a previous life. So it could be a little confusing, but that's why we're here to kind of like make it a little simpler. There was one more thing I wanted to
And we're not
mention.
trying to gross you out either.
Yeah. Like I'm having sex on my.
You ain't trying to gross you out. It don't work like that.
I'm having sex. Also, too, I don't want to talk about it at this very moment, but I know I have a forgetful mind. So, Janine, please remind me that at the end we need to talk about the villains and how they because I the question I had, and I kept asking Janine for months, if somebody's assigned to come as your villain, don't they have to serve karma when they come back? Like, I just couldn't say, like, if I'm being mean to you, don't I get penalized for being mean to you? I just didn't understand that portion. So we're gonna visit that towards the end, because I think that will help us, solidify everything, towards the
Definitely.
end. So anywho.
Definitely. So, like, one thing to remember, you touched on it about contracts, is that they can come at any time.
Yes.
Contracts can come at any time. They can terminate at any time,
Mm-hmm.
and the time frame of the contract can be any time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for instance, that relationship that may have lasted only 2 weeks. Don't overthink it. Don't ever wonder
Yeah.
why. Oh, he was such a my Prince Charming, but he came in and he ghosted me.
Yeah.
I've been there. But you know what's some crazy shit is that one particular short-term contract could have elevated you
Oh
into
yeah.
something like magnificent.
Oh yeah.
You just
Yeah.
understanding him, just him or her just saying certain words to you, and that's why that person sticks with you mentally and
Yeah.
emotionally. And you're like, why did they ghost me? I just love that person. Or
Yeah.
everything was just going so good. And that's because there are things that had to happen in that short-term contract that was going to
Mm-hmm.
wake you up for you to start seeing things about yourself. So these contracts that we have, and that's when you know it's a true contract, because that person's interaction with you is unforgettable,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I'm gonna piggyback on what you're saying. And one of the reasons why I had a hard time with my spirituality and my enlightenment walk was because I went to church from the time I was born. Like I was born into church.
Yeah.
And so religion played a big part on my life. Like I thought about everything like, okay, how would they think, what would they think of me if this, that, and the third? So when I got pregnant with my first child, I actually was not technically married yet, but I went down the aisle. I was like 8 to 9. I was 8 months pregnant. But I brought that up to say that I was relieved to hear what I'm about to tell you because religion contradicts contracts a lot. So what I found is sometimes you can have a contract with someone, you have a one night stand just to have a baby, and
Yeah.
religion is like, oh no, you're a whore. You, you
What?
gotta do.
How dare you?
Yeah. So I had a hard time understanding that. I'm like, so wait. So you're telling me that you can have sex and have a baby to, because it made sense. And I'm gonna tell you why it made sense when I really dissected it. How many times have you heard babies are not mistakes? When in the church, they tell you that babies are not mistakes. But then they'll turn to the woman and like, you're a whore because you had a one night stand with. But how was I supposed to produce this baby who's not a mistake if I didn't have that one night stand? So, I'm just trying to make a little point that contracts are, like we said, some of them are temporary, some of them are long term, but the little tiny contracts sometimes may contradict what we learned in religion. Anywho,
Definitely, but these emotions will lead us into the elements that we need to have in order to elevate ourselves, which number one is like forgiveness. So I know that's a subject that we definitely have to delve into is forgiveness.
yes.
So when you for the example that you just utilized about you being a slut and walking down walking down the aisle, 8 months pregnant.
I was bigger, and I was dressed in all white. Don't get it twisted. I know they was like, look at that heathen.
That contract, you had to have this particular contract with your significant other so you could contract with the child that is to be, and you are all going to develop karma and experiences within your own relationships of each other
Mhm.
that you will have to learn the elements of forgiveness in order to heal.
Yes.
So your soul contracts is definitely that precursor to what's to come
Hmm.
between you and the relationship with that other individual. And this is ongoing. It's ongoing. Your contracts are ongoing.
Hmm.
Again, some of them are long, some of them are short, but we can't ever hold on to um, why that person is either in or out of our lives and why they are
Yeah.
bringing these particular emotions to us, but just know that we're all friends on the other side.
Yes.
So learn your lesson.
Yes.
Learn
That's
your lesson.
really important. So your villain that was bothering you, when you go back, y'all are friends.
Your
Because
friends
you
on the
signed that contract and they did an excellent job. Sometimes when they do too much of a good job, they need to get an Oscar for what they did.
that
I
bitch.
know some people in my life right now, they need to get an Oscar because
got
they
a,
are really
I got a
driving
few
me.
too.
Like, come on. When is this contract up? Because you doing your job as a villain too damn well.
Well, yo, okay, so that's crazy. So I'm glad that you brought up contract termination. So this is the
Yes,
thing: you have the power to end a contract.
you sure do.
Don't think for 1 second that you can't end the contract. And I'm not talking about killing somebody. Don't kill them. You'll create karma. Don't do that.
Don't get no hitman from New York.
Put some poison in the
Thank you for
coffee.
clarifying that. But the Twin Flames told me to get
I'll put
in
some poison
somebody's
in the coffee
contract.
because look, we're all friends on the other side. So I'm gonna do what
So
I
you
gotta
don't mind
do.
if I night him?
No nighty night. Don't nighty night. Yeah. Oh God.
We
But yeah.
promoting
So
ending contracts.
yeah. But no. Okay. All jokes aside, knowing that you can end a contract, it should give you a level of solace because
Yes.
you should know. Oh, I gotta say this.
Okay.
I gotta say this to people who are married. People who are married that are
Mm,
staying
yes.
together for the
Yes.
kids.
Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
I got to give a big sigh because
Yes.
I do not condone relationships being prolonged for the sake of the children.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand that every last one of us, I don't care how much you loved your mama, I don't care how much you hated your mama, I don't care how much you loved your dad or hated your dad, but you will always develop some level of childhood trauma
Yes.
from your parents or even a sister or a school friend. Somebody is going to instigate childhood trauma in your life,
Yes.
and everybody is destined to experience it. You, me, Keisha, and everybody in between.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that by you walking away from your husband is going to create some trauma for your child, it's a possibility that it can.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say yes. I'm never going to say no. We're living in different times now, and there are different levels to family dynamics. And
Mm-hmm.
some of us are still stuck in the early 90s, early 2000s, and thinking that just a husband and a wife are just supposed to make everything great for your children.
Yes.
And that's not always the case. So family dynamics have changed, and children are becoming much more aware.
Oh yeah.
And children are so much more in tune and intuitive than we all fail to realize.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have to learn the power of words and communication
Yeah.
and preparing our children for a new a new life, a
Oh
new
yeah.
life outside of what mommy and daddy had created for you being in this one household.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't ever don't ever take away the power and the knowledge that your child may actually have, and by you thinking that by your separation that your child won't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised that there's a lot of children out here that can handle it, and they're probably a lot more mature than you two assholes are.
Yeah, and
So
they'll say to you, Ma, I
yes,
saw it all along, and I'm so glad that you're happy now. Or even Dad, Dad, Mom was driving you nuts.
I'm
So,
not going to throw anybody under the bus, but somebody in my family had to go through a major separation, and my her daughter, who was my relative, her daughter took it very well. And what she said was, Ma, I just wanted you to be happy. And she was under 10 years
mm-hmm,
old when she said this.
mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
She said, Ma, I'm just so glad that you're happy now. And then she said, well, do you want to still see daddy and I together again? She said, no, because you're just so happy. So that's why
See,
I'm saying children are so
yeah,
intuitive,
mm-hmm,
and they want great things for us too. And can you imagine what it's like being whole for yourself
mm-hmm.
when you're so whole and so complete, and you have worked on your own trauma and your own self-care, that how much you can give to the people around you.
Oh yeah,
So
okay.
please don't take for granted these opportunities to be able to learn and love yourself just because you're afraid to terminate a contract.
I want to just say something, and I didn't even tell you this. I just saw something a couple days ago. There's a study that showed that successful people, a lot of them come from homes where the mother's mental health was stable.
Mm,
And I found that very interesting. So that piggybacks on what you're saying. So and they said if the mother is stable, the child can progress in life.
definitely.
And the child needs a good foundation so that they can grow into a mentally sane adult.
Yeah, but you have to be balanced. You have to be balanced. And you can't even imagine how that resonates into
Mhm.
everybody around you. And
Definitely, definitely.
if you're living in this home, you think that separating from your spouse is creating a broken home. Those
Yeah.
are those are just labels that society puts on us.
So, it's interesting that you're saying that because there's a lot of people who, especially women, but like I said, I don't want to harp just for the women. I want to say even men. There's people who are in relationships where they know it's time to go, or they don't even know, they didn't even know contracts existed, but now you know contracts existed, but their contracts have been up for a long time, and the way they know is because their gut feeling is that little voice that tells you it's time to go. This is not healthy for you and your family. Their kids are suffering. So you are being told by your spiritual team it's time to go, and it's up to you to trust your spiritual team to open doors for you to be able to be set free. So a lot of times
Absolutely.
people have fear and, oh, what if my finances, emotionally, whatever it is, they have the fear of leaving, so they'll stay in the misery because of the fear of leaving.
And that's
But
my go ahead.
no, but again, no, no,
That's
no.
my segue into my story.
Okay.
And I want to tell everybody part of my story and my life path. And we always have different subjects that come up in our conversations because there's so much to talk about. So I definitely want to make this another topic in itself. But I broke up from my spouse. I was in a relationship for well over 7, 8 years with someone. And even though it wasn't terrible, they had did something traumatic to me.
Yeah.
And I was attached to the house that we had created for ourselves. And I
Mm.
didn't want to let go and move on.
And you had a beautiful
And
home.
yeah, yeah,
A beautiful home.
and I loved it, and that's the same thing about when it comes to husbands and wives who are together for the children. Sometimes you don't want to let go of the things that you have created between each other.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finally had the courage and let go of the fear of stepping away, because I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it financially, mentally. I didn't know how things were going to fall into place for me. But
Yeah.
when I finally got the gusto to walk away from my relationship, it's funny how God put things into alignment for me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I
Yes.
told him that day, I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to work. I went to work the next day and I'm just sitting out there, just meditating and just trying to figure life out. And then all of a sudden, this guy walks up in front of me, and no joke, a a, a moth jumped from underneath my seat. And I went to go like I would just step on it and kill it, son of a bitch. I was gonna kill his ass, and he's like, "Don't kill him." He's like, "Don't kill him." I'm like, "But why?" Like, just don't kill him. So I'm like, "Okay." And he says, "Miss," he's like, "Can I ask you a question?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Do you work here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I work here." He says, "Well, I just bought a house in North Carolina and I need to rent out my townhome that's 8 minutes from here. Um, is there any way that I could post it in the hospital so the nurses or the doctors can rent it out?" And I'm like, what? Mind you, I just I just told this man less than 24 hours I don't want to be with him. And I didn't know how I was going to move on. And this
Mm-hmm.
guy walks into my life saying that he has to rent out his place, and I'm like, well, just so happens that
I'm
I'm
looking.
looking. And to make the story even more crazier,
Oh, yeah.
when I finally went to go look at the place, I'm driving there, and as I get to like literally the corner where I got to turn into the complex, I'm familiar, so I look around and I'm like, oh my god, my little sister lives across the street. Like
Yes.
crazy and synchronized can that it can it more could it really be? Because that just goes to show you that when you have finally learned your lesson, and
Yes.
it's okay, and you finally get the courage and the you have that inner knowing of understanding that it's okay to terminate the contract, that God is ready to push you into a new path, a new
Yes.
direction. And when
Yes.
it finally happens for you, it will open up a world of abundance that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't think was possible.
Yes.
And here I was worrying. I was worrying, just like some of you
Mm-hmm.
guys are worrying. Some of you women are worrying, how can I move on without this man? And some of you men are like, how can I move on when this woman cooks me meals every night and I don't know how to cook?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
You'd be surprised about how God aligns things for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is know deep down in your heart that it's okay to forgive and let go. And when you
Yeah.
do this, I'm telling you, it's just, ah, it's
You know,
a
I
moment of
want to.
awe.
I'm that your story is so amazing, and one of the things that people must understand is so because some spouses are the villain where they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. Meanwhile, you as an individual, you have a laundry list of things you want done in your life. You're asking God, and and this is probably stuff that has nothing to do with your household, but you might want to go back to school, or you might want to, whatever it is, you might have
Yeah.
other things in life. But what happens is when you stay in that house, when you stay in that contract, and they keep giving you signs, they keep giving you signs, and this person keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and you allow them to continue to mistreat you. And just remember, someone mistreating you doesn't mean they're putting their hands on you. There's a lot of different ways of someone mistreating you. So what happens is they'll let that person, because they're the villain, they'll let that person keep going at it and at it and at it until you say enough. Then in Janine's story, once she said enough, that chapter closed and many more chapters opened up. And I
Yes.
mean, because this is social media, we can't delve into the tiny little bits and pieces in her personal life. That's too personal. But I could tell you, I could attest that it's amazing how when she shut that door, that the next chapters that flew open, it was like, whoa. But indirectly, she could have still been there right now. She could have still been right now, and we probably wouldn't be doing this show right here.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing how when you finally take that your foot out of that arena and say, I'm going to trust my spiritual team, everything will flow. It's like going, you know how it reminds me of when you're driving down the street, all the lights start turning green. So you're
Yeah.
like, okay, the next light is green, 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 and
Like, how could that be?
huh?
It's like, how could that be? How could that be?
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah,
timing was so perfect, and that's just it. Your time
yeah,
is divine timing. And when you know that it's time for you to end a contract, I'm telling you, it's just abundance, man.
yeah,
Green lights for everyone.
yeah,
Green
yeah,
lights.
yeah.
But you can't walk away from a contract though without learning the lesson, because that's the whole point of the contract.
Thank you for saying that.
So
What was
don't
the
think, you
lesson
know what, I'm
learned?
leaving his ass tonight.
Yes,
Did you learn the lesson though? And you
yeah,
know how you learn now, how you know you've learned the lesson is when you walk away from the relationship in peace.
yes,
You're not
yes,
mad anymore. You're
yes.
not you're not holding on to resentment and anxiety. You're
Mm-hmm.
not depressed when you're just like, you know what, he did his job. And that brings
Mm-hmm.
me back to this subject of the villain.
Yes,
That
yes, yes.
I see, I'm such a good twin flame. I don't forget. I don't forget.
Thank you, boo. Thank you.
So tell the world about these villains.
So the funny thing as you're talking is, and this happened to me in different stages in my life. I'm not gonna just pinpoint one person, but what I found is, like we talked about, if you're serving karma. Oh, let me just rewind it before I even say what the point I was about to say. I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a riddle. I know Janine knows the answer, but a lot of people, why would they not allow you to know who are the characters in your story and what contracts you have signed? Can you tell them real quick why?
Remind me. Shit, I don't remember.
Because if you have a contract with someone because either you hurt them or they hurt you in a previous life, and y'all both got to come back and do it together, and you have this fresh contract, just imagine you will not forgive anybody. You be like, I hate you. Like, are you back again? So
Yeah.
they purposely have us come back not remembering anything from our previous lives. Because if we remembered anything from our previous lives, we would hate everybody. We wouldn't want to do We want to do perform the show.
Yeah,
Like, no,
we gonna
I'm good.
learn.
No, because in 1800, that dude over there. So going back to the whole villain thing, villains sign a contract to help you get through the lesson that you have to learn.
Yeah,
So believe it or not, the husband or the spouse or the mate you're with, if they keep bothering you and you're not waking up, it's some lesson that you haven't learned. So
exactly.
you got to figure out, and you know what the answer is. You know what the answer is. Some of you, when we put someone under hypnosis, she had to learn that in a previous life she didn't speak up. So in this lifetime, the contract that she signed with her spouse was, I'm going to keep nudging you until you start speaking up. So
Yeah,
that was the reason why he signed up to be her villain, is for, so she can learn how to speak up.
yeah,
Now, I'm pretty sure if he, once she starts, because that was the assignment for her, she has to start learning how to speak up. And then maybe, I'm not a psychic, for her at that moment, maybe if he started speaking up, I mean, if she started speaking up, maybe that contract between the two of them would disintegrate.
yeah,
No.
yeah,
But villains are very special to all of us, and some of us are the villains to someone else. Don't sleep. You could be terrorizing somebody else. So just know that if you are a villain or someone else is a villain in your life, there's a reason why. And I'm gonna go down the list. It could be your mama, it could be your daddy, it could be your boss, it could be your children. Some of you need to learn how to have patience.
yeah.
Children will drive you to drink.
It was such a
Chapter in your
drive.
life you're working on is patience. And they will keep at you. And you're like, and then oh, and this is the funny thing, right? So as you are like, for example, the parent with the child and not having patience, you'll keep getting tested over and over again until you pass the test.
Yeah,
And sometimes they test you more than like 10 to 20 times.
yeah,
He tested hundreds of times with these same individuals. It's a straight pattern. That's the key, patterns. And what
and
lesson are you supposed to learn from these villains?
you learn the lesson and you will
Yes,
break the curse.
yes.
Learn the
So,
lesson.
and don't feel bad, because if the lesson was for you to learn how to speak up, or if the lesson was for you to learn how to walk away, sometimes the lesson is that your contract is in your contract for you to learn how to walk away. So um don't be I've lost my train of thought, but in a sense with the villain, don't be afraid to walk away, because that's the lesson. I've lost my train of thought, and I
Yeah, and
apologize.
don't hold on to it. And that and I want to finish off by saying this. So my significant other, who I mentioned in my story, I did have a dream about that person, and I do have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of dreams. Um, my dreams, obviously, and for most of us who don't realize the significance of dreams, is that dreams will give us clues into what's happening in
Yeah.
our lives at the present time. But I did have a dream about him, and I saw very vividly that he and we were on another planet,
Mm.
and we were holding hands, and we were just touring this planet. And I can see the planet clear as day right now, how it looked there, and we were just going on a tour.
Yeah.
And Keisha's very good at interpreting dreams. And when I told her about the dream, she said to me that you guys were friends. You guys were friends in the previous
Mm-hmm.
life. And that's important to know, that your contract that you have with that person,
Mm-hmm.
what a loving thing for them to do. They may seem like an asshole right now
Yeah.
in this lifetime, but they came here for you.
Yep.
They came here specifically for you, so you could learn what you need to learn, so you
Mm-hmm.
can elevate and be something greater.
Oh yeah.
And what a commitment, what dedication that you two have created between each other, so
Mm-hmm.
that way you could be a better person.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
if that doesn't resonate with you, or If you don't take anything away from this conversation, at least
Mhm.
remember that part of it all is that that person who you contracted with, who is playing your villain at this current time, that there is a strong possibility that they could have just made the commitment to come back to
Mhm.
nudge you and be that son of a bitch
Yeah, yeah.
so that way you could learn great things about yourself. And again, I will stress, because we're all striving to be
Yes.
a higher and better version of ourselves.
Hmm.
And wow, 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 what a
Yep.
loving thing, so
Yeah,
loving.
definitely.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on a couple things. Parents, we get a lot of clients who are mad at their parents for the way they raise them. And we are finding that your parents did exactly what they were supposed to do. And a lot of people will have a hard time digesting that. So if you had a parent that just did the bare minimum, that was their job. That was the contract that they signed for you, because maybe in this lifetime you had to learn how to be a strong individual and depend on yourself. Maybe in another lifetime you couldn't do that. So now this lifetime you have to learn how to be strong. So parents, most of the time, are doing exactly what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Second point I have is the villain and the what's the word I'm looking for? So karma, the villain and karma. So I had a hard time understanding the role of a villain, and my question was, when they go back, are they judged for doing a for hurting people? Because they obviously, most of them are hurting people mentally. They're messing, they fucking people's minds up, to use my French. So my thing was like, well, how are they a blessing and a curse at the same, like how are they a blessing if they hurting people? And my question, I for months I kept asking. Remember, I kept asking you, like, how is a villain judged when they go back? And this is really important because I finally got my answer. Because many of you know from a previous show that when you go back to having your body is scanned, and you get to see how you affected people from their eyes. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if the villain was hurting someone, they're going to see how badly they hurt that person from their eyes. What they say is that villains sign a contract to come and do what they do. Well, the key is the villain is given signals from the other side to stop. So this is where it gets very intricate. And I need for anyone who's watching this to know, if you are the villain, if you know you're terrorizing somebody, if you start getting that little voice saying it's time to leave them alone, you did enough. Stop doing what you're doing. That's your key that your job is done, your contract is up, you did a great job. Now you need to move on and continue on with your life's journey.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, then you start developing karma, because now your contract is up with that person. Now you're just blatantly hurting them. So this is very important for everyone to understand. Yes, people sign the contract to be villains, but villains can end up developing karma in the end.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful way to end the show.
Yeah.
So I hope that this really touches a lot of people and brings a little bit of insight to how we all work and how we're all intertwined with each other, because you don't even,
Yes.
some of you don't even know how deep this whole contract situation can really go.
Yeah.
And that's why we have ancestor families too. Our
Hmm.
ancestors, they're contracted with the person, three people before them, and then
Yeah.
three more people in front of them. So it's an ongoing thing, these
Yeah.
contracts. And we all come here intertwined and lovingly to figure out how we can balance ourselves.
Yeah.
I will
And
say that a
learn
million
lessons and
times
fix
over.
karmas. That's the main idea, to fix karmas.
Fix karma. Fix
So
karma and to balance ourselves. That's what this planet of F ups is all about. So thank you, everybody. So glad you joined us once again here
yes.
for another episode of the Twin Flame Spiritual Chefs. Click that like and subscribe button. Click those buttons. Click those buttons. We
Hey.
need you. We need you to come on
Yeah.
back so we can spread the word of healing and love to so many more people, and we can't do it without you. So we're so grateful for you. Please
Hmm.
come on back, come on by for another episode,
Oh
and we
yeah.
look forward to having you. Just remember that God is love. Love is the highest frequency. Go and find the God within you all. Take care, everybody.